The night I quit, the rain came down in sheets so heavy it blurred the streetlights into long, trembling streaks. I stood in my apartment doorway with a cardboard box pressed to my chest, the taste of defeat metallic in my mouth, and I told myself that walking away was the bravest thing I'd done in years. My name is Matthew Carter, and I had just left the job that once promised me everything. The building across the street loomed like a shadow I could never quite escape, and somewhere deep in my chest, something cracked open that I didn't yet know how to mend. Before the story unfolds any further, take a moment to pause right here. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that one moment of courage can change a life, please like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. I had started at Hawthorne Systems in Chicago with a kind of faith that only youth can carry. Back then, my wife Sarah was still alive. Our mornings were filled with coffee, steam, and laughter, and the future felt like a map already drawn. I worked long hours because ambition seemed noble, because providing felt like love, and because my CEO, Jonathan Reed, was known as a visionary who rewarded loyalty. Over the years, the company grew, but my world shrank. Sarah's illness came quietly, then loudly, and finally it took everything. After her funeral, I returned to work hollowed out, a widower with a desk full of deadlines and a heart full of silence. The challenges stacked up the way snow does in a Midwest winter, slowly at first and then, all at once. My performance slipped, not because I stopped caring, but because grief does not follow office hours. Meetings blurred together, emails went unanswered, and I felt myself becoming invisible in rooms I once led. Jonathan Reed, the same man who once praised my ideas, now watched me with a distant patience that felt worse than anger. I tried to hold on, telling myself that pushing through pain was strength, but every night I came home to an empty apartment that echoed with memories. The job became a mirror reflecting everything I had lost. The day I quit was not dramatic. There was no shouting, no slammed doors. It was a quiet resignation typed with shaking hands, submitted in the early hours before dawn. I told myself I needed space, that I needed to breathe again, that leaving was the only way to survive. When I handed in my badge, the office felt colder, as if it already belonged to someone else. I packed my things, nodded politely to coworkers who didn't know what to say, and stepped out into the rain, convinced that chapter was finally closed. That night, after I dried my coat and set the box down, there was a knock at my door. At first, I ignored it, assuming it was a neighbor or a delivery gone wrong. But the knock came again, steady and insistent, cutting through the quiet I had wrapped around myself. When I opened the door, there stood Jonathan Reed, drenched from the rain, his usual polished confidence softened by something I had never seen before. He didn't step inside right away. He simply stood there, looking at me not as an employee but as a man who had walked too far alone. What followed wasn't an argument or a plea about productivity. It was an unspoken reckoning. Jonathan had lost someone too, years before the company ever made headlines. He recognized the signs in me that no performance review could capture. He admitted, not with words but with presence, that he had failed to see my struggle, that leadership meant more than metrics and margins. In that doorway, soaked and silent, something shifted between us. The power imbalance dissolved, replaced by a shared understanding that life could break even the strongest among us. Over the next weeks, everything changed in subtle, almost invisible ways. I didn't return to my old role immediately. Instead, Jonathan insisted on flexibility, on space to heal, on redefining what success looked like. I began consulting part-time, working from home, rediscovering the rhythm of days that weren't measured solely by meetings. The company offered counseling, not as a checkbox benefit, but as a genuine lifeline. Slowly, the fog in my mind began to lift. I started cooking again, taking evening walks along Lake Michigan, allowing memories of Sarah to exist without crushing me. The story was not about a CEO saving an employee. It was about two men confronting their humanity in a system that often denies it. Jonathan learned to lead with empathy rather than distance. I learned that quitting didn't mean failure, and that sometimes walking away opens a door to something better. The company culture shifted too, almost imperceptibly at first. Managers checked in with their teams, Burnout was named instead of ignored. People began to feel seen. Months later, I returned to the office for a company gathering. The building no longer felt like a prison of expectations. It felt like a place where my story belonged, scars and all. I stood near the windows, watching the city pulse with life, and realized that the rain-soaked night I quit had been the beginning, not the end. The knock on my door had carried a message far deeper than words ever could. One about belonging that transcended job titles. As this story draws closer to its end, if it has touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to engage with this video. Like it, share it, and let us know you were here. Stories like this only matter when they are felt. There is one more thing I want to ask before we close. Please comment below with a single word that captures how this story made you feel. Your words matter more than you know. Today, I keep the resignation letter I never needed framed on my desk, not as a reminder of weakness, but as proof that courage can take many forms. Life didn't magically become easy. Grief still visits, sometimes without warning. But I no longer mistake pain for failure. I understand now that leadership, love, and healing all begin with seeing the person in front of you, including yourself. In a country that often celebrates hustle over heart, this small, quiet story unfolded in an apartment hallway in Chicago, reminding me that even after you quit, even after you think you've lost everything, someone can still knock on your door and change the way you see the world.